Your house is worth whatever it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Charlie Landing grew up in Sussex, is the founder of Best Agent and presenter of Moving Home with Charlie.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same.
So Charlie, what would be your advice for people interested in buying new builds right now?
Don't overpay. Do buy, but don't overpay. That's why I say disregard the guff. Read into the numbers and look, and it's buried. The bad news is buried in the small print, okay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
They may or may not be telling the truth, but you should form your own view. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view. You cannot be in a position to make offers and have the offers accepted if you're not viewing. Just be out there viewing. Pay attention to the back of the class. If you've not been watching my videos, I did one just a couple of days ago. Disregard the guff. I have gate crashed Alex's house. We had no plans of doing this evening at all, but we met up this afternoon in a pub from which I stole this pint.
It's been a while.
This is a stolen
Although
pint.
you can show my water glass, which is also a stolen pint glass. We're thieves.
That's a nice quote. This is just a cheap one. No, it's early before watershed.
Oh, sorry. We are terrible thieves.
We're terrible thieves.
Fornicating thieves.
Stop it! We haven't even started. Right, evening everybody. It's Wednesday evening, and I normally have a guest on, and we have the Wednesday workshop. I normally have a professional, respectable from the moving industry, but tonight I'm afraid it's just Stiggy.
Yeah, sorry about that.
There's a lot of things are happening, a lot of interesting things are happening. Good evening, Tina Fey. Good evening, Fee. Good evening, Nick Jones, who says, is Stig still going to tell us the economy's okay?
Yeah. Yes, as I have done for the last 3 years.
But I'm going to kick off this evening with a story that broke today. I'll put it up on the screen there. Zupla has been put up for sale for £500 million. It's the asking price. But as we know, asking prices on Zupla are usually about 20% too
Are you
high.
saying they're aiming 20% too high?
And what we know is that Zupla was bought for 1.6 billion. 2000. Yeah, it was up to 2010.
Yeah.
That kind
so
of. So
after the market crash,
yes,
the original exited.
That's right. So the owners, who are Silver Lake, who is an American private equity, and Right. How about that? Is that better? Can you hear me now? Yes, no, yes, no. Can you hear me now? But that's going to be good for me, but there's a bit of a delay. Oh, this is a bore. This is also unusual.
Yeah, given we've got decent internet.
Yeah. Can anyone hear us? I know there's a bit of a delay on the live stream here. On the live chat. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Come in, audience. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, Dick, says someone. Okay, cool. Can you hear Alex? Alex, could you say testing?
Hello, testing, testing.
Because now I've switched microphones and that might affect it.
Yeah, spot on. Good.
Okay, right. So
go back to who you were talking to today.
So I had lunch today with a very senior figure of a very large, well-known estate agency who was sharing with me a number of anecdotes about the market that are not public anecdotes, all of which are reflective, indicative of increasingly challenging conditions.
Yep, especially in the prime market.
Especially in the prime central London market. The chief executive of one of the largest estate agencies in London has announced his departure. That is always, I think, a sign. No one gets out when they're
when they're expecting a big payoff in the near future. You know, if the market is great, why wouldn't you hang on in there for a couple of years?
So I don't like talking about house price crashes.
But you know what they missed? They missed the point where you said that having spoken to this person, they were talking about a 50% from peak decline in per square foot prices in the ultimate, prime market.
Prime central London prices per square foot in some parts of London are down as much as 50%.
And this person is a director of a company that deals precisely with those properties. So not someone who is uninformed, not just anecdotal.
Arguably someone who's sold more of that property than anyone else in the last 35 years.
Exactly.
So can you guys always also hear Stiggy? Because he's a long way away from the microphone now.
They've said yes.
Yes, good. You look at everything that's happening and power blackouts don't help when you're feeling jittery and the markets are jittery and the tariffs are coming in and people have been talking about people who bought $2,000 worth of goods from abroad and they've arrived with $2,000 worth of duty to pay.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not. It all just feels, I don't know what the word is. It feels
frightening,
skittish.
Yes, skittish, Tombs. Yeah, very. You should have brought you thought you could come and capture me with 4. You came late. That was your first mistake. But this team, skittish, Tombs, very skittish. If you can get that film reference, Chronicles of Riddick.
Not seen it.
Vin Diesel.
Not seen it. Not seen it. Not seen it.
Man.
Now I don't think Zupla's going to sell for £500 million.
No. Probably 20% less.
In the last year, its profits were £16 million. So even if you went on a PE of 20, it's £320 million. And it's in a declining market.
Yep. If they make 4, they'll have done very well, but it's more likely to be 3.
And for what? PE?
400 million.
Yeah.
As opposed to 300 million.
But they're owners.
But they sold for 1.6 billion back in
2012, yeah. But the thing is that the owners don't care because the owners, Silver Lake, have done very well on their other 50 or so holdings. But it does imply the potential for a change in the UK housing market, landscape and players. So it's a good time for Best Agent, actually.
It is, but this is the thing: is it's a weird. If you went back to the 90s, you saw falls across every sector of the market and across the entire market. Whereas this does appear to be leasehold flats, prime properties in urban locations, particularly London, Whereas places in the northeast, for instance, that, let's face it, have never really recovered massively from the 2008 collapse, they're still holding up okay. And if you have a terraced house in London, you're still okay. There doesn't seem to be much fall there. I mean, there's a little bit. You saw that place in Fulham for 1.6 million that just sat there and sat there and sat there. And the one next door eventually sold for 1.2, so 400,000 less. But it's not the same across the entire market as it was in the 90s, because we haven't had a full economic crash yet.
Correct.
This is focused really within housing.
It's been unusual, hasn't it? Because there has been a genuine, real, and verifiable slide in house prices at the higher end of the market. Bloomberg today talking about house prices are down 10% in real terms from the peak.
But again, that's the average.
But that's the average.
Looked at the prime market and the flat market, it's much more than
that.
But terraced and semis are keeping it at 10% roughly.
Nobody 3 years ago could countenance 35% drops in value. There, in some places, there have now been nominal 35% drops in values of certain properties.
In the places that were, hugely over.
Kensington and Chelsea. There's some places outside London as well, 20-25% nominal.
Mayfair and Belgravia have not been avoiding this either.
No, exactly. Now, the other thing that happened to me, I've been doing a number of one-to-one video calls recently with people who book time with me. It's one of the things that I offer. I think there's a link below if you want to book one with me. But if you want to pay me for my time and then ignore my advice, I mean, that's fine with me. I just find it really bewildering. And there have been several of you, and if you're watching this, I'm sure you'll know who you are. Several of you who've booked my time to say, Charlie, I'm really worried. What do you think I should do? And I've said to you, you've had your offers accepted on properties that you're now worried about. And I've said to you, withdraw, turn around and run for the hills. Do not buy that property. To more than I want people to buy their dream home, but it was the home we wanted and it's great. But these ones had major survey problems.
Oh, well, that's
roof, electrics, plumbing, damp, rising damp. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, right? Not just like a bit here and a bit there, like major structural stuff. And they people pay me for my opinion on their particular scenario. And I was unequivocal. I said, if you were a member of my family, I would stand in your way. I would prevent you. I would physically prevent you from buying those properties, because that will be a nightmare from which you cannot wake up. Well, we both work full time. We're not hands-on DIY kind of people. We'd like to live in the property while they're doing it up. Hang on. We'd like to live in the property while they're doing that. So there's going to be no electricity, no water, no roof. And you want to live in it.
You'll live in a caravan in the garden. But my point is this. When you say structural, if it's a roof, that is actually something you can deal with. If you've got the cash, depending on the size of the building, you can deal with it. If it is foundations, if there is something where a building, there is subsidence, whatever it may be, unless you're willing to knock that building down and you have the money to build a new building, you are into years of issue. Years, not oh, in a few weeks we'll have it fixed and we can live in the house at the same time. No, they will be in there with metals, steels holding the ceilings up, etc. While they dig under foundations, refilling them, etc. It'll be a nightmare.
And years. And the thing is that some of these guys I've spoken to, I've said, you've seen the TV shows, right? Where this happens. And I'm saying that this is exactly the scenario you're looking to buy into. And I'm saying don't. And you're good. But it's this. I think there's a parallel between this phenomenon where a buyer gets fixated on a house.
And there's so many more houses. 31
No.
million.
In fact, to be fair to these two people, they were both like the only one that's come along that meets their criteria in the area in their budget. The only one.
for a reason.
But the fixation is a bit like the fixation sellers have about what their house is worth.
Yeah.
No, but my house is definitely worth this much money. How do you know that?
But you just hit the nail on the head. You said it's the only one in this area that we want, of the spec that we want, at the price that we can afford. Well, you know why? Because actually that's not the price that you're going to afford.
No one else is bidding.
Yes.
Now, we have one other where the advice was, I can afford it. I can afford to pay asking price. It is a house I've been waiting years to find, but I don't want to leave money on the table, so I'm going to bid a bit below. To which my advice was, no, that's a mistake. If there are other bidders and you can afford the asking price and you don't bid it, you will lose it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I said, would you kick yourself if you lost it? Yes, I would kick myself if I lost it, but I don't want to leave money on the table.
Well, pay the asking price.
Today, I think it was, I got an email from that person saying, it's funny how you don't realize how much you're going to miss something until you haven't got it anymore.
Because they bid under.
They bid under, they didn't get it, it's gone to someone else. And they said, do you think I can email the seller and the agent and say, actually, I'm happy to pay asking price now?
Too late.
In case, no, I said, yes. I mean, you do it.
But it's not going to work.
Let them know you're a fallback if it doesn't go through. But this is another thing. And agents that I'm advising at the moment, I have one where I spoke to a seller about a month ago. And the seller said, yeah, this sounds great. You're not overpricing. I love it. But these agents are saying that they can get me more. Okay, how are they saying they can do that? Because there's no evidence. I don't know, but they've convinced me. Okay, if you go with them and it doesn't work and you drop the price, it will then be harder to achieve the price because now tainted, everyone's seen it. Guess what's happened this week? That seller has rung up the agent I work with going, you were right. They haven't even got any viewings. We've dropped the price twice. I've now lost faith in that agent. Can I come back to you? And this agent has rung me up and said, I don't think I want this one now because they have now dropped the price to the price that I probably would have launched it at. And they're still getting no interest. So now they've already squandered the opportunity to get the interest. I don't know if we can sell, and I don't want to take on a property that we can't sell.
Exactly.
And no matter how many times you warn sellers of this mistake, no matter how much evidence you give them, there are some, and I know, and I'm grateful to all of you sellers who tell me the stories that you've listened to this advice, that you price sensibly and you sold quickly. So I know that there are those among you who have taken on my advice and successfully sold quickly at a good price. But there are still a majority of sellers who, with absolutely no hard evidence whatsoever, just think, but we'll just try it at this higher price, even though all the evidence, all the evidence
is going against
huge amount. Even Rightmove says that if you price too high, you got less than half the chance of selling it at all at longer. But we're still going to go against that evidence and just price it here and cross our fingers, even though we've been warned that we'll end up getting less money. I just don't know I don't know how you. Well, people I love, friends of mine, have done this.
So an anecdote, and this is from a week ago. I was out with some work colleagues, and one of them has sold a house that he lived in for 30 years and raised a family and all this sort of stuff. And he and his wife have sold the house. They've moved. They're now living on the coast. It's a retirement thing. All fantastic. But, and the price that he sold for was not an issue. All of that was good. But his next door neighbor, who's been his friend for over 20 years, has phoned him up and said, oh, well, you know how you kept all the Victorian fireplaces and all this sort of stuff? Well, the new people have moved in and they've ripped it all out. They've ripped out all the fireplaces. They're sitting in the drive. I can't explain to you, this guy in his 60s, over many beers, not one, many beers, was nearly in tears about the fact that the fireplaces he's maintained and looked after and had refurbed. And it's like, mate, this isn't your house anymore. You've sold it. Your family are still fine. It's just a house. But these sellers, especially if they've been there a long time, they are emotionally invested in that, in like a child.
I told the story about my mother when they sold the house I grew up in. They put it on at too high a price. This is going back a long time for us in the industry, right? Eventually, the agent delivered an offer at asking price, and my mother's response was it that woman who viewed at the weekend?
No.
That woman's not having my house.
The whole point is you're selling it. It's not your bloody house anymore.
She did eventually come around to it, but when you're that invested in it emotionally. Now, someone here has made a point that brings me on to another anecdote I've got from today, from the market, from the front lines, from the bleeding edge of the front line of the property market. Kevin H says, I've been getting quotes for a new roof recently, all £15,000 plus over what I expected, and I'm a chartered surveyor.
Yeah.
It's mental.
Yep.
Right.
That's labour costs for you these days, and materials.
This is the
labour
point.
Is what's killing you.
So I've had an agent talking to me today saying that a property that they sold quickly, came to the market, priced it right, got lots of interest, got it sold. £1 million property.
Mm-hmm.
They had a survey done, a level 3 survey done. But this is why you should always get the surveys done early on.
Yeah.
And actually, even as a seller, I think it's worth considering doing this, because this has turned into an absolute nightmare. The survey came back and said there is a severe damp problem that's going to cost upwards of £70,000 to fix. Both the buyer and the seller. The point of this story is to point out why AI is never going to replace estate agents. Right? This is a classic scenario. The buyer thinks the seller was hiding it.
Right.
And has got angry and wants to pull out.
Yeah.
The seller is angry and thinks the buyer is being disingenuous and
was never going to pay that price. Was looking for something in order.
The buyer and the seller have both just gone boom.
Yeah.
It was supposed to exchange this week.
Mm-hmm.
The seller still wants to sell. The buyer still wants to buy, but they now won't deal with each other. So
humans,
because there's just so much pent up.
Aren't you making an argument?
But
for
also,
why AI will work.
No, because the thing is
that
that AI will not salvage the situation. Only humans will. So they've got to be talked down.
Well, AI will say, actually, you need to reduce your price by 9%, not the 7%, by 9% in order to make up for the effort.
The angry seller would just pick up the device through which the AI was speaking to him and stamp on it.
Well,
if AI said that to him.
But his AI will go, well, 9% seems a bit much. How about 1%? So 8%.
This is the point, right? You've got a seller that wants to sell and has been waiting for. You've got a buyer who wants to buy. You've got an issue that's arisen. And let's assume the seller didn't know about it, right? And let's assume that the buyers also, listen, I've just got a survey done. This is
exactly.
Right?
Which I'm sure is what
you
happened.
need 24 to 48 hours of both parties to just calm the fuck down. Right? And focus on what they want. Get over their emotions, get over the rage, get over the blaming someone else because things are backfired, and work out and go, actually, there's probably still a way forward. If the buyer loves the house, which they do.
Now the survey has been done, every single buyer is going to say, well, I'm afraid you're going to have to take the 70 grand off.
Right. To which the seller might say, well, I'll take 35 grand off. Because this has blindsided both of us.
To which the buyer says, yeah, but that 70 grand is the cost of doing
That's fine.
Roof.
I'm the seller. That's all I can cope with. Whatever. The point is, somewhere, it makes sense because the seller still wants to sell. The buyer still wants to buy. They love the house. So if they don't find a way through, it's a silly waste of time and money and everything,
absolutely.
right? Because they both spent all their money on their conveyancing and on the surveys and everything else. If they walk away, all that time, all that money is for nothing. And this is something that agents do a lot more than people realize. They just become the diplomats and the peacemakers, and they help those transactions happen. Does Charlie have an OnlyFans account? Why? Do you reckon I should? Do you reckon I'd make money? Would people pay? What would I have to do?
Yes. What are you putting your feet on OnlyFans, Charlie? Because
some people are into toenail fungus. They
love it. A bit of athlete's foot, very safe.
Right. Okay. I'm just looking through comments now. Do we have any? What Yeah, you have to ignore that guff.
What's that?
So, in the last 24 hours, I have been speaking to a number of different agents,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just trying to think about the best way to summarize this. It feels like when you combine the fact that suddenly maintenance costs, labor costs are so much higher, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people are losing money on the stock market at the moment. Some of them because they moved money when they shouldn't have, and then it's caught them out the wrong way and it's gone back
I
up.
did say it was
Yeah.
once. Everyone was like, "No,
No,
it's
no,
this
I said the same. I said, don't move your stuff.
Yeah.
Just sit tight.
Yeah.
Sit tight. But the instability and the uncertainty is still
Well,
quite high.
it made me very happy because gold has gone through the roof. So hey,
Gold. Wow, is it? You have gold, do you?
no, Moni does.
She holds gold.
She's a gold.
A gold
She's
holder.
Polish. The Polish government have backed gold, and therefore Monaco
Okay.
must follow suit.
Okay. I don't know. It feels strange. We haven't yet seen the first round of employment data after the employers' national insurance contributions went
No.
up. We haven't seen that.
No.
We have seen house prices appearing to weaken, both Zupla and Nationwide saying that house price growth is weakened significantly.
No, what I want to see is the Bank of England outcome.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, we're going to have to wait a very long time. But I'd love to know how much tax take Rachel is going to achieve with these new policies.
It's already, I mean, it's already down because of them.
Yeah, but that
It's early days.
early days.
It's going
I
to get
want to
worse.
see exactly what a year of these policies and the fact that everything is still frozen. People always talk about, oh, well, a national insurance increase or the minimum wage increase and to the effect of the employer. Yeah, I get all of that. But one of the biggest impacts to everyone is the freezing of all the allowances.
Oh, yeah.
And the continuation of that. That, I don't think we're going to see a great tax take.
I find it impossible to understand when we're living in a country with an already a very high tax take. If you're a working person, there are people who are going, "No, we need more high."
No, hang on a second. And this is. Oh God, this is controversial. I've probably drunk too much, but I'll say it anyway. So, there'll be no swearing.
Okay.
There'll be no swearing, but people may take offence to this.
Okay.
If you earn the national average wage, 37,000, roughly 37,600 or whatever it is now, you pay in total on your earnings about 18.4% tax a year, which is very little. 18.4, I'd love to pay 18.4% tax. And because minimum wage has now increased to the point that it is now, I think, £26,000 a year, the gap between the median wage in this country and the minimum wage in this country is only 10 grand. But if you earn £120,000 in this country, and I'm not going to go into student loans and all that sort of stuff and childcare, let's ignore that. You're a single person earning £120,000. Your tax take is over 37%. So it is double what the median earner earns, and the low earner, but on minimum wage at 26,000, is paying much less. Which means that we are all being squished, unless you are someone who earns £500,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
If you are anyone earning between 26,000 and 120,000, you have been compressed. The difference between you is marginal now. Okay, it's not marginal. There is no doubt that if you're earning £120,000 a year, you are still earning, in terms of take-home pay, substantially more than someone on minimum wage. But the difference is not as great. And therefore, the buying power from housing is not that great. And you look at that and you go, well, what's the incentive? Where am I? Where
to work.
to work? What's my incentive to actually put in a 70-hour week? Oh no, we have working regulations. You shouldn't need to do a 70. Well, I got to be honest. I had to do 70-hour weeks in order to get promoted 3 times in 2 years as a permanent employee. You know, if I hadn't done all of those hours, if I wasn't working weekends while I was running projects as a permanent employee with no additional pay, they would not have promoted me. And because they did, I ended up in a position where I was at the higher end of the spectrum. Is that right? Should we only ever have to work 37.5 hours a week? Yeah, in a utopia, in a perfect world, that would be wonderful. But right now, anyone who worked as I did in my late 20s and early 30s, what bonus do they get? Because anything they earn over and above is being taxed straight out of their fucking hand.
Yeah.
I
don't think anyone's going to be offended by anything you said so far.
there are a lot of people that think that minimum wage should be up to the point where it's a median salary effectively, and so on and so forth.
Well, I was thinking about this, right? I'm now going to offend some people. I think, because there is one saying I've heard over and over again in life that I've never heard anyone disagree with. And that is, you get out what you put in.
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone disagree with that. And you can pretty much divide the world into 2 groups of people. Those who consciously decide to put more in in order to get more out. And those who can't be asked to put more in. And I think that same line is the dividing line between capitalism and socialism.
It is not always, it's not 100% true.
No. It's an oversimplification.
Like Alan Sugar, who was selling car aerials from the boot of his car,
yeah,
and did everything in order to build his business, and he put in 80-hour.
Yeah, but no one's talking about that. That's no. I mean, he put more in.
But I know people, who have never really worked ever properly hard. I mean, their understanding of hard work, whether that be physical or mental, is very limited, and yet they earn a lot of money in the city. Purely because of connections.
They sold their soul, though.
They sold their soul, but they don't give a crap because they don't have a soul.
Okay.
So it is possible to not put in very much at all, but to come out very well.
I would argue that you'd have to have put in something in your education levels to be able to go and get those high-paying jobs.
One of them is a rower. He literally is as thick as the table you are leaning on. He is that dense, but he was a very good rower. And therefore, he got immediately inducted into a hedge fund because his old rowing coach, who was a mathematician, was at the hedge fund, took him in, and he now earns, it's an astronomical amount. But these are outliers. These are so rare. It is generally true that what you put in, you will get out. Your effort will determine how well you do. And if you think you can obey EU regulations and put in 37.5 hours a week, and in that time make lots of coffee and chat with your mates and do this sort of stuff, well, I hate to tell you, but you ain't gonna get that much out of it.
No. Well, where do we go from there?
Work hard, don't let them tax you. Move to Dubai.
You've just reminded me of something, though, which is I saw someone post on LinkedIn the other day about, if you're not getting what you want out of life, work harder. Now, I don't agree with that, because I know people who work extremely hard
and get bugger off
and aren't getting what they should be getting for it, and feel accordingly like this isn't fair. But what it tends to be is the case that I think it's, if you're not getting enough out of life, make different choices.
That is true.
Because if you're someone who is willing to work hard, be reliable, and show up, there are employers who will reward you for that. Above average.
But you need to.
But you've got to choose to move around.
Right, correct.
You've got to make the choice. So you've got to make the choice when you know you're being overworked and underpaid and undervalued. You have to choose to move.
Yeah, but that's okay. So this is how our society has shifted. If you went back to the 1970s, if you were joining the workforce in 1970, even though we didn't have any of these employee rights,
and
none of that was there. I remember my father joining. Sorry, I don't remember him joining Essex. He joined before I was born, but I remember when I was young. They grew him through the company. Companies expected you to work for them. That's why you had defined benefit pensions, because they expect you to join at the age of 21 and work for them until you were 65.
Yeah.
That was the expectation.
Yeah.
And therefore they said, well, we must train these people.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're good, if they get good reports, we'll promote them.
Yeah.
And if they're good at that job, we'll mentor them and we'll send them on courses and then we'll promote them again. And that was the way companies used to work. But the shift came in the 90s, not the 80s, the 90s, to the fact that companies went, oh, well, we're going to downsize, we're cost cutting, we're offshoring, we're doing all of these things. And employees, you are just cogs in the machine. As IT comes in, we think we can replace you. It's wonderful because we now have technology. We don't need you particularly. We don't need to train you. Training is expensive. And not only that, we've now got all of these employee rights that are coming in, the whole EU thing, Jesus Christ. And so people don't stay with companies for 44 years. People stay with companies for 3 years, just long enough on the CV, 3 to 5 years. So it looks good on the CV. And then when they want a pay rise, they go to another company. But they've had no mentoring. They've had no training. There's been nothing in that time that has made them a better employee. And therefore, you end up with companies that, A, the company doesn't appear to care about its employees, but the employees also don't give a flying about the employer because they are already planning their next jump to a better position in a different firm. We have ruined society in so many ways, and that is one of them.
Well, Phil says, there it is, move to Dubai. You guys sound more and more like boomers by the day.
No boomer moves to Dubai because they're already bloody rich.
Exactly.
Why would they want to go to a sandpit? A slave-built building site in a sandpit. Boomers that I know hate Dubai.
Ebbs Baj says, the price of a kebab is a joke these days. Then how I know we are in trouble. My local one shuts at 9:30 on a Friday and Saturday night in a very nice town in Sussex. Yeah, well, there you are. That's news from the front line of the kebab world.
Yeah.
What I'm really looking forward to seeing, I don't not expect to be very good, is HMRC's figures for April transaction numbers.
Yes. Yeah. They're the earliest. That gives you the stamp duty.
See, when you see chief executives as large businesses
running
leaving
away.
and large businesses merging with other large businesses, that tends to be a precursor to them knowing, oh god, the market's going to hell. It's funny. It's like, I don't see anyone who disagrees with the fact of what we were talking about a couple of years ago, where the economy was going to head. A couple of years ago, the economy felt okay, didn't it? The indicators were telling us it was going to get worse, but no one wanted to believe it. No, it's going to be fine. Stop being so negative. Come on, let's just talk it up. Yeah. Now, there seems to be a sort of general acceptance of the taxes are up. Everything's gone up. The cost of living is still going up. No one's feeling better off.
My water bill doubled yesterday.
Yeah.
Literally double.
It's one the other. And every week there are stories of job losses, more job losses, business insolvencies going up, all this kind of stuff. So now I haven't seen anyone saying, nonsense, everything's fine. The UK economy is booming. And all of that said, there are plenty of people with very secure careers, earning good money, their money's going up and they're moving house and they're paying, whatever's happening.
I have family members who at the moment are doing extremely well. They don't realize that they are literally balanced on a knife edge.
Okay.
You know, there is a company sale that may or may not go through in the same way that Zupla have put themselves up there at 500 million. It's wonderful. 500 million seems a nice round sum. But if they only get 300 million, that won't upset the PE guys that much. They'll be unhappy, but it won't mean anyone losing their home. That's not the case for the slightly smaller fry who have transformed and are setting up companies and are selling them on, all this sort of stuff. You know, a lot of people are on a knife edge or a cliff edge that they don't know is there.
That's very true.
It's just right there. One step wrong.
Yeah.
You know, oh, what was it? Who was it? Pink. That was a good song. You know, I put 1 foot wrong and I could fall.
Yeah.
Somebody will get me. That's
Yeah. People who are leveraged up, got a lot of debt,
exactly.
relying on a job.
Correct. Well, so many people have been sold the dream of it's okay, you've worked hard, you've done well, you're in your late 30s, early 40s. What you should do is become a landlord. Just buy a couple of flats, you'll be okay. Maybe you want to build your own home. Maybe you want to buy some land. Maybe you want to do this. And these people have done something that 40 years ago would have been guaranteed to make them a fortune over time.
Yeah.
And right now, they are on that cliff edge.
Mm-hmm.
If the Bank of England decide to cut interest rates, will the market follow? Will SONIA swaps fall? Will mortgage rates fall? Maybe, maybe. We saw the first buy-to-let landlord mortgage at the 4% range today. The first one that had been launched.
Well, there's a lot of competition between lenders.
But you still need a 35%
Deposit.
cash up front. And this is the thing, many of the people in their 30s and 40s don't have that. So they are leveraged to the hilt.
So I'm going to answer Alexandra's question. So to buy or not to buy?
That is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer than slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or I went Shakespearean on you. I apologize.
This is the point. No matter what happens, everybody needs somewhere to live. And whatever you fear may happen in the future shouldn't affect your desire to own a home. If your desire to own a home is simply because you desire somewhere to live, that you can't be removed by your landlord at short notice.
Yeah. Let's not talk about that, Charlie. You want to talk about that?
Nope.
Okay.
Talk about what? I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
If you don't want to be removed by your landlord at short notice with children and plans,
all
then,
I'll say, audience, is I don't have any children, so I'm not sure who this is affecting.
Then you do want to buy and own a home. And so you should always buy a home if you found one you can afford. But Alexandra, if your question is, but our house price is going to fall, not so much at the first. I mean, if first-time buyer prices fall substantially, then that's because something very bad has happened. Because the pent-up demand and desire from people who want to own a home, whatever's happening in the economy, is massive. And that is why it's very frustrating for first-time buyers who are hearing all of this negative economic stuff and house prices not doing that, but they're not seeing prices at the first-time buy level come down.
They've got Rachel Reeves offering them 6 to 7 times mortgages, over 40 years. So that way it's affordable.
Would you do it? Would you do it? Come on, hang on. Let's imagine you're a young couple. Got your first kid on the way.
You've got to remember,
you've got a landlord who's kicking you out at short notice, and you want to own a home to raise your family.
Charlie, you were the guy who borrowed to drive an RS6. I was the guy who tore up all my credit cards at the age of 25 because I realized that was a stupidity to be in debt. I absolutely bloody hate debt. It drives me, as you know, from one issue that I have to the point where I can't deal with it. I would never take on, even if I was 25, let alone at my advanced years, a 40-year mortgage. And I would never accept a 6 to 7 times salary multiple on interest rates that could potentially increase. There is no way.
I know the 7 times multiple is based on long-term
fixed. It's a 10 to 15 year, but that means that the lender is likely to go bust. Just as America,
that's not bad if you're the buyer.
Well, it is, because someone else will buy the debt, and then you get fixed in an 8% variable, just as they did with Northern Rock, and then you're totally screwed. And we had this conversation 3 years ago, and I said, America is screwed for one reason in terms of the housing market, and we are screwed for a different one. And you went, well, what do you mean, Alex? I said, well, it's very simple. In America, they have got 30-year fixed-term mortgages which in 21 they took out at 2 to 3%.
Yep.
In America, these regional banks will go bust. And then someone will have to deal with taking on that debt, and they won't charge 2 to 3%. So in the first instance, it'll be the banks that are screwed. In our country, the banks only give us, in most instances, 2 to 5 years on a fixed rate. I mean, yes, you can get longer things, but the average is a 2 to 5 year fixed rate. So unlike in America, it'll be us, the individuals in our houses, who are screwed. And that's the difference between America and the UK. It's totally the mortgage product, because house prices are defined by lending. Wages allow lending. Lending defines the price. And to allow 6 to 7 times, even over a 10 to 15 year fixed rate over 40 years, is pure insanity. It is a house price pumping. It's just madness. It's dumb. It doesn't help first time
People will
buyers.
take it.
Yes, they will. I agree, they will. But that is because people need a slap in the tits.
No, if that's their only way into a home that they own and out of bad landlords.
And are you saying that 30% of people who live with their parents between the ages of 20 and 34 is too much? Yes, it is. It's ridiculous. And I understand why, if you were a 32-year-old, you would probably quite like to not live with your parents anymore. But Jesus, we've got to find a better way. And the only
I agree with you.
Is to reduce the lending multiples and to reduce house prices.
I am in 100% agree with you, but that ain't going to happen.
Well, then everyone needs a kick in the crutch.
So, well, my point is, can you see a day that any government starts to do that?
No, I can't. I didn't think they would raise it. I got to be honest.
Yeah.
I thought they would, I could never see a day where they would tighten it from 4.5 to 3.5 times household income, which is what they should do.
So you understand that when you do a long-term fixed rate mortgage,
yeah,
the reason you're able to borrow more is because you haven't got to be stress tested on a rate.
Well, you don't have to be stress tested now.
But they do.
They do, but they gave up stress testing in 22.
And then as a buyer, you've got fixed certainty of your mortgage payments, and they don't go up with inflation, and your wages go up, and that doesn't.
That's the idea,
yeah.
Yes.
No, and that's not the idea. That's the reality for a lot of people who buy and stay there for a long time.
The idea that your wages go up and inflation. Have a look at 2008 to 2010. I think you'll find that wages went down.
Right.
So it's not always the fucking case, is it?
Yeah, no. That's true.
Yeah.
And do you think that could happen?
We are about to head into. We've just raised everybody's, and this is the weird thing about the UK and Europe, especially Italy and Spain and Portugal, which unfortunately, unlike Germany, who are screwed for different reasons because they keep shooting themselves in the face, I think they feel guilty about the war, because they are literally, they are like somebody in a room going, I'm a bad man, I must chop off my own penis. I just don't know what to do. The Germans took a wonderful manufacturing country that had the third biggest economy in the world, and they've screwed themselves over power, which is the economy.
Well, our old friend Mr. Dalton doesn't think it was Germany that did that. It was other people that did it to them.
Oh, he's got a good.
But yeah, okay. So by the way, Alexandra Sewell, who was asking to buy or not to buy, says our small nationwide company was sold to a bigger company, CGI, because the owner could not afford the employer's national insurance tax rise.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a result of this, we are paid 10k less. They dropped us on money.
Yep, and that way they save on the bill.
So, Helen, this is the first time I've heard you say this on one of our live streams for a while. You are expecting wage growth to go negative at some point, or you think it could?
Yes, I think it could. I really think it could.
And
I'm not
by way of actual salary cuts.
I'm not talking about real drops. I'm talking about nominal.
Yep.
The same thing that happened in 2008 when they turned to contractors and said, yes, we'll renew your contract, but on 20% less.
Right.
Or, and this is the great one, and it hasn't happened to permies yet, but it will do. And they're trialing it with the 4-day week. I've been a contractor since 1998. And up until 2019, every contract I had was 5 days a week.
Yep.
I would go in, whether I was working for Sony, for GSK, for the Financial Times, it was a 5-day a week job. I could focus on one client, the whole thing. Ever since 2020, all work in the contract market is fractional.
Yeah.
They go, oh yes, no, we would like you to be the program director for our £1 billion build in Cambridge. We'd like you to do that, but we think it's a 2-day-a-week job. And you're like, well, that's wonderful, but it's not 2 days a week. It's going to take much more than that. No, it's 2 days a week. Okay, then I'll only work 2 days a week. Oh, well, why haven't you delivered this? Because I only work 2 days a week, but I need more than 2 days a week to pay for my living. Well, go and find another job. Hello, school group. Oh yes, no, we need a program director, and we're 1 day a week. Okay, so now I've got another client. Okay. Oh no, but it's all right because we've got a science thing in Whitechapel, and suddenly you've got 3 clients, and that means you have to juggle because they all expect more than the days that they're actually paying for.
But conversely, you're less exposed to one of them going.
No, but that honestly, that Converse thing, throw it in the bin. Not one of those clients is going to go bust. That's like saying that Exxon, the oil
No, but the
company,
work could stop.
Yes, the work could stop, and then you find a single job.
Yeah.
Now
I'm just saying that there is an argument that says that your risk is diversified.
and that's why no, a portfolio can be diversified because it just sits there and you've invested in shares and gold and cash, whatever it may be. That's wonderful. A diverse portfolio, great. A diverse job, shite. You have to switch your focus. Humans are not good at multitasking. Switching your focus.
Men are not good at multitasking.
No, I am better at multitasking than any woman I've ever met. Just to raise the sexist, misogynist sort of thing.
Yes.
But honestly, it's a terrible thing to do because then you go out to the market and they go, oh yes, no, we'd like you to work for us. And you go, well, I can only work Tuesdays and Fridays. They go, well, what if we have a meeting on Wednesday? No, on Wednesday I spend all day in Cambridge.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So just a couple of comments here. JP Gordon says, does appear to be more haves versus have-nots of late, with both not fully comprehending each other's position. Yeah, I said, what is a have and a have not is a subjective thing as well. Because one of the things that Gary's economics has backfired on is that when he says the rich, people on median or lower incomes think that anyone who earns more than them is rich.
Yeah.
And that's not what Gary means. And actually, I saw him do a video ago where he said, no. Yeah, if you're earning 120 grand, I'm not saying you should be taxed more. I'm saying people with wealth sitting there.
Yes. 10 million. 100 million, whatever it may be.
All right. I had another question I wanted to do here. Dan Denning says, are you thinking it's still going to continue to get worse through 25 and 26? And will sellers start to realize the 20, 30, 40% increases from COVID are now gone? In a nutshell, Dan, yes. I do think it's going to continue to get worse through 25 and 26. And I do think more sellers, some sellers, to their credit, there are sellers out there going, the market decides the market's not what it was. I need to sell, I need to move on.
Yeah.
And if you're an upsizing seller, you're going, well, this is great for me. My house isn't worth as much as I thought it was, but the house I'm buying is also worth a lot less.
No, but a lot less. Exactly. Nominal terms,
so it's good times for upsizers at the moment.
Mm-hmm. It has been for some time. You called that out a while back.
I did. I called that a couple of years ago, and it continues to be. Lynn Shepherd says, Charlie, some of my friends rent. They have kids. Serco plans to evict them and replace them with others.
With immigrants.
Is worrying, what can they do? So if you are renting and your landlord gives you 2 months' notice to move out with children, your landlord is entitled to do that.
Yeah.
But currently, the law as it stands also means that as tenants, you are entitled to not move out. Now, it could cause problems with your landlord reference that you might get, but the law protects your right to stay in that property until either you're happy to move out or until the landlord gets an eviction order from the court, which can take 6 to 8 months. So my recommendation to someone who finds himself in a position where your landlord blindsides you with you've got 2 months to move out, and where that's not enough for you, doesn't suit you, I recommend that you say to your landlord, that's too short notice for me. I can't get out in 2 months. Can we have a conversation and agree slightly more period? Maybe it's 90 days, maybe it's 3 months, maybe whatever it might be. Okay.
Mhm.
But what I recommend that you do, because this is in the best interest of both tenant and landlord, is sit down and have a conversation and agree what is achievable so that you don't end up with a dispute. Because with a dispute, it ends up badly for both people. But at the moment, the way the law stands is if your landlord says get out and you don't want to get out, you don't have to get out.
No, you can just sit.
Until various eviction notices.
Until the Section 21 has gone through court,
Yep.
and you actually have bailiffs turn up at your door. And as you
but the Section 21 can be, that's what's initial. That's like bang. There's a Section 21. You got 2 months to be out.
Yeah.
The Section 21 notice on its own does not require you to physically vacate.
No, well, that's my point.
Yeah.
Sorry, Section 21, and then it has to go through the court process. And when bailiffs turn up, you can be evicted. That could be 6 to 8 months down the line.
Yeah.
But the important thing is this, as you pointed out, for people who are then going to move into other private rented property, that's one thing. But for anyone who thinks they may have lost their job, they were made redundant, they didn't get a payout, they'd lost their job. In order to get council help, you are obliged to stay there until you are evicted. Otherwise, you are voluntarily homeless.
Yeah.
And if you're voluntarily homeless,
Intentionally homeless.
the council will not house
Correct.
you.
Correct. Looking for other questions here. Right, Miss Jane 782 says, I'm in IT. I got a blanket 2% rise this year, well below inflation. Equates to about 60 quid a month after tax. Grateful to have a job though in this environment. Well, this is the point. So when wage rises aren't keeping up with inflation, like house prices aren't keeping up with inflation. If that's starting to become more widespread, because I still find that the 5-6% nominal wage growth quite surprising.
No, it blows my mind. Well, I did all my models.
But again, the ONS has been proved to be wrong and misleading on numbers. So
Okay,
do we just believe them?
Let's just wind it back. At the end of 22, there was a real wage fall. We saw it.
Yep.
Everyone agreed it. Bloomberg agreed it. The FT, everyone agreed it. And that was where we'd been talking about this for a while, but that was to me the indicator that things were about to go Pete Tom.
Mm-hmm.
When you see a real fall in wages, that doesn't happen very often.
No.
Okay. But suddenly we then, in 23, started to see a massive growth in wages. And you're like, well, yeah, okay. I mean, inflation has fallen away. We're seeing that, we're over the peak. But these zombie companies that are being hit with higher interest rates on their debt, why are they able to pay their staff more money? Now, there's two schools of thought on this. One of which, and bear in mind, everyone keeps it's on the down low. It's in the papers. Oh, well, there's all these, inactive workers. Inactive.
Economically inactive, yes.
Economically inactive.
Not unemployed.
No. And you go, well, really, they are unemployed, what we're saying. So we often see in recessions that wages, for a while, go up. They go up because you only count the people in employment. And of course, there are less people in employment, and because of cost cutting, they're expected to do more, and their bosses tend to give them a pay rise. So actually, the employed people, but the unemployed people, they depending on the tax take. So the taxes go up, and you will see that. But here's the thing. You would normally see unemployment rise. So back in 2010, 2011, which is 3 years in this country after the crash of the house prices, the stock market, etc. It took 3 years, and it was then that unemployment peaked, and it peaked at about 8.5%.
We had some riots, didn't we?
We did. That was about 8.5%. In 2011, I was going off walking the Camino de Santiago, and as I left, the rioting was happening in Croydon the day that I left. And you just went, I don't recognise this country at all. But if you went back to the 90s, when unemployment truly peaked, and it peaked at 12.5%, again, it was 3 years after everything fell apart.
Yeah. To all intents and purposes, it feels like we've been in a recession for a while, doesn't it?
Per capita GDP
we've been in a
is a
recession for a while.
joke.
Yeah, it's pretty grim. So, and I still hear about landlords people thinking about becoming landlords. Oh, I've heard I can get an 18% yield.
Oh God. Sorry, what?
That was on a live stream the other day. Someone's told me I can get an 18% yield.
On what?
Is that person
On
selling you the
gold?
house by any chance?
Yeah.
If you really know what you're doing, if you are experienced, and you know how to buy property that is appealing to renters, and you get it at a good price, and you get at least a handful of properties.
You're still never going to get 18%.
No. Well, actually, weirdly, in certain places in the country, you might do. If you pick up really cheap property.
Yes, no, sorry. If your yield is £300 a year, because you're buying properties that are £40,000 in an old mining town in York, then yeah. But if you're buying anywhere that is the national average at £270,000, there is no way that you get an 18% yield anywhere where that is the national average.
No, correct.
And when you are taxed on it, your actual take home is not great.
No, exactly. But yeah, the point is, if you are a professional landlord, you are experienced, you know what you're doing, and you manage the risk. In other words, you never go, well, hopefully the tenant won't move out. Hopefully the tenant won't lose their job, because that's not a strategy. Hope is not a strategy, right? But you've got a big enough portfolio, and you're stable. Perhaps you own them as a landlord outright. You're buying cash, so you haven't got mortgage interest to worry about. Then you can do quite well.
I look at my landlord of this flat.
Yeah,
he does extremely well.
If you take a long-term view, for long-term tenants, you're reasonable with the rents. Well, there's been I've had a lot of feedback about I put a cat amongst the pigeons about you could actually own a home outright faster by renting, saving and investing. And that just kicked a hornet's nest up again. No, you must buy. You must only buy.
The English, sorry, and I include the Scottish, the Welsh, the British, Irish, the British, are obsessed, and that's
the wrong word. They are brainwashed. It is.
They're chipped at birth.
If you understood what it meant for the rest of your finances, you'd never fucking do it.
Because you've got no money to invest in anything other than
your home is the only thing, and that's what you've got in your life.
Yeah.
And if people actually could see that when they're at the age where they're buying their first home, they go, hang on a second, this is a shit deal.
It's insane. But Rachel, with her FCA, with the 6 to 7 times wages and the 40-year terms, she's making it so that is the only thing.
Martin, thank you very much.
What's Martin?
Martin Bass has given us some US dollars.
Oh, thank you very much, Martin.
Very much appreciated. And quite a lot more valuable than UK pounds, I think. Perhaps.
No, the dollar's devalued to the max. It's brilliant. Now is the time to go and buy stuff in America. Dollar's worth fuck all.
It's 133, I think. It's pretty good. Right, guys, I'm afraid I have a train to catch. So I would love to keep on chatting for a while. This has been great fun as always. If you want to follow Alex on X, there is his X handle right there below. It's Alex Groundwater.
Yeah, I am
quite easy to remember. And he chimes in there from time to time. He comes and goes, but it's always very entertaining when he does.
You mean like a panda with bamboo? Eats, shoots, and leaves.
Yeah. Yes, I don't know what you possibly. Couldn't possibly know what you mean. Lots more to discuss on the economy. This evening was just a spontaneous, unexpected. I mean, literally 2 hours ago, we didn't know we were doing this. It's been fantastic.
No,
It's been
but
great.
you were drinking Guinness and I was on the wine, so
Yeah, we had no idea. Don't start talking about Bitcoin.
Who mentioned who?
Dr. Benny Boom Bats. Of course. Do you know what? We could have saved our 1 hour live stream. Do you know why, Alex? Because Bitcoin fixes it.
It does. It
Fixes
everything.
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 Fixes everything.
I went to Waitrose the
I've
other
got a bad
day
case of
and I
hemorrhoids,
said,
but you know,
here is my
Bitcoin.
butt coin. Give
Yeah,
me.
yes.
I want the
It is.
fillet steak.
You've got
And they
hemorrhoids,
said-
you need Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, they said no. They literally. I said just a kilo, just to get.
I saw someone answering you and saying, you can. There are credit cards that use Bitcoin.
I have a whole butt coin.
When I see something that's been fixed by Bitcoin, then I'll think differently.
I'm sorry, I come from the tech background.
I know.
I looked at blockchain, and blockchain is a really interesting concept. It's
good, and it's got use cases, hasn't it? It's got good ones.
There are no decent use cases for blockchain outside of Bitcoin. I thought we could use it for supply chain. I thought it made perfect sense, especially drugs, pharmaceuticals.
Yep.
You know, you want to know exactly where stuff comes from, and you could follow it with blocks on the chain, because it's going to be great. It turns out that you could do it with an Oracle database for about a 15th of the price, without all the computing power, without the requirement.
So much more carbon friendly.
Yeah. Ed Miliband.
I tell you honestly, seeing Tony Blair,
in the crutch.
well, like Tony Blair has today.
I would love to see in a public market square Tony Blair kicking Ed Miliband in the crutch until it came time to say, "Excuse me, warmonger, weapons of mass destruction. Can we just kick you in the crutch?" And everyone just piling in.
But we're not inciting violence here. We're not inciting violence. I'm not allowed to do that.
This is an imaginary. It's a thought.
This is a hypothetical. We're
cut
not
this.
saying you should go and kick Tony Blair in the nuts. No one suggests.
It was a vivid.
Metaphorical. It was a metaphor.
It was allegory. Well, each. Their
Okay,
own.
I've got one question for you. Barry Brown says, quantitative easing incoming.
I really fucking hope not. But given that they've relaxed lending, why not? Why not? I've never modelled that because it would be a total insanity. We've gone through quantitative tightening for the last 4 years.
They're still doing it, yeah.
Yep. And we've managed to reduce our outstanding. This is what's so funny, is we've managed to reduce our outstanding gilts from 875 billion to 795 billion.
And the taxpayers picked up a loss of 150 billion.
Correct. I mean,
and no one understands this.
No.
Everyone thinks the QE is free money.
No, we are making good. We are making the Bank of England whole.
I just want to make a point to anyone watching this whose QE stands for quantitative easing. It's also known colloquially as money printing. But it isn't, and it isn't free, because what happens is the Bank of England sells things and then it buys them back at a loss, and the taxpayer has to pay the difference.
Correct.
Right? And it's a significant difference. 150 billion is a lot to be picked up by the taxpayer.
Yeah. And there's still so much to go. Now, if they suspend quantitative tightening, I support that simply because we can't afford it.
Yeah.
But if they started printing again, all these guys on X who go, money printer goes, I need to kick them in the nuts. But is it outside the realms of possibility? Not for this government. Nothing is off the table.
JP Gordon says, no, I've got to go. But out of interest, what are your thoughts on homeschooling to open up housing options? Well,
you love homeschooling.
I choosing to home educate our children has been one of the best decisions of my entire life. And it does open up housing options because then you don't have to live in a school catchment area.
Today, I was sitting in one of the most prestigious private schools in the country.
Okay.
And they asked me about homeschooling because we were talking about the refit of their sixth form. And they all agreed, every single one of the middle-aged men around me agreed that homeschooling these days was a viable option in comparison with private school education.
Okay, so Martin is throwing more money. I didn't realize that's what he had to do. That's
Thank
what
you,
money-
Martin.
Hang on, no, it's because he wants me to display this on the screen.
Oh, was he?
5-year gold chart.
Oh yeah, love a bit of gold.
There it is.
I've been loving it. I bought 3 years ago for Monica, you understand.
There's the 5-year gold chart, Martin. So thank you very much. Sorry that I missed it, but I'm glad I did because it made you put more money in. Yeah. I have to tell you something, guys. Like, any of you who've been watching my videos for a long time, going back a couple of years, will know that I'm currently renting a new build home in North Devon. For how much longer that's the case remains to be seen. But
I think they're gonna
I'm
put
actually
two and two together now.
That's because I was trying to buy a home.
Yep.
I'm really glad that I didn't buy that home. With hindsight, I dodged a bullet.
It was a lovely home, but
No,
structurally,
the point
it was screwed.
is that the maintenance cost, like, it would have been a nightmare. And it would have been, as much as I would have loved it, I'm very, very glad that I have not owned a large, country house in Devon in the last 3 years, and I'm continuing to be glad that's not the case for now. Right, everyone, thank you very much. Have a great one. I really must go.